So, first year that we decided to do RecoverCon, I came across a gentleman that had written a book and was out. He had a product that I thought was pretty interesting, and we met and we decided to use this product for our organization, and it was revolutionary, and we'll be talking about that. In my opinion, it's what separates the men from the boys in terms of providing services, whether that be clinical or non-clinical peer support services. The company is called ERP Health. They've been extremely supportive of our mission, helped us to pilot a program to try to use his technology, and Eric has been at every RecoverCon since day one, and he flies in on his own dime and doesn't ever ask us for a penny. He just wants to be here to let you guys know what he is doing. And it's just amazing work. He and his team are phenomenal people. Thank you for all the support you've given us, Eric. We love you, brother. So I give you Eric Gremminger, ERP Health.
Hi everybody, as Gerald mentioned, my name is Eric Gremminger. I am the CEO and co-founder of ERP Health. I'm also a clinician by training and a person in long-term recovery from a substance use disorder. And I like to start my presentations off with an affirmation. I like to affirm that today is an opportunity not to be as good as we once were, but better. And if you all wouldn't mind, I'd love it if you'd affirm that with me. So the way it's going to work is I'm going to say today is an opportunity not to be as good as we once were, but, and you all yell better. Is that okay? Today's an opportunity not to be as good as we once were, but, let's try it one more time. Today's an opportunity not to be as good as we once were, but, today's an opportunity not to be as good as we once were, but, thank you so much. And I love that affirmation because to me, that's the definition of hope. The belief that today can be better than yesterday. That the future can be better than the past. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't believe that these days. And that's led to record highs in overdose deaths. It's been said that now 1 in 4 people have a diagnosable mental health condition, and 20% of high school students have reported having suicidal thoughts just this past year. And while there are many different reasons that could lead to these conditions and these things happening, I believe that at the core is a feeling of hopelessness. And that's a feeling that I felt in my life. So I hit a personal bottom on August 4th, 2010. On that day, I found myself homeless on a bench outside of City Hall in Center City, Philadelphia, having just been released from Delaware County Prison for yet another DUI, another possession charge, and that's what my life had become. A series of working extremely hard to get things in my life, only to lose them all as a result of my addiction. Working extremely hard to get those same exact things back that I lost, again, only to lose them all as a result of my addiction. And I'll never forget this day. It's August 4th, 2010. I'm laying there, and it's a hard plank, dark green bench with concrete sides. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. And I'm laying on this bench, and I'm looking up, and on top of City Hall in Center City, Philadelphia, there's a statue of William Kent. And I'm looking up at this statue, just thinking, what have I done in my life? And the feelings of helplessness and hopelessness, I can still feel those today when I tell this story. The best way that I can describe what happens next is my psyche couldn't take any more of the internal narrative. The Eric, you're a junkie, you're a piece of shit, what's wrong with you? That was just replaying over and over in my mind. My psyche couldn't take anymore. And I like the word surrender. It just surrendered. And then my physical body couldn't take anymore the drinking, the drugs, the poor nutrition, the not sleeping, everything that comes with that, quote, addict lifestyle. And my physical body couldn't take anymore. And at the intersection of my psyche surrendering and my physical body surrendering. It allowed for what I consider to be a higher consciousness to step in, and that's the last time that I've ever used drugs or alcohol. And ever since that moment, I've just been obsessed with finding ways, means, strategies, methods, whatever I could find, not only to help myself, but to help anybody else who I possibly could. Now, over the years, I've had the privilege to work with thousands of people all around the country, and through my research, I've identified that if we could help somebody to find a sense of purpose, so one of the 4 pillars, of recovery, if we could help somebody to find a sense of purpose, a compelling vision for their future, a dream that they're working towards, it actually promotes a sense of hope. And that's been true in my life. And there's a really great quote that I love by Steve Jobs that says, you can only connect the dots looking backwards. You have to trust that in the future the dots will connect. So in this presentation, I wanted to share some dots that I've connected over the years as I pursued my personal purpose in life, and some of the lessons that I've learned and how I've applied those lessons to create a paradigm of hope for myself and others. So picking back up on my story, it's August 4th, 2010, and I spent the night on that bench. And as you can imagine, I have thousands of thoughts that are rushing through my mind. I have fear thoughts. I'm homeless, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I have excitement thoughts. I'm in a busy, stimulating city after just spending 6 months in jail. And amongst those thoughts, an image popped into my mind of a guy named Harold. Now picture a 65-year-old former hippie from Ventura Beach, California. And I had met Harold 2 years prior when I was living at a halfway house about 30 miles north of Philadelphia. And he was living in a nearby recovery house. And we had become friendly. Now, conventional wisdom would say there's very little chance that anybody's still at one of these houses. I mean, this is 2 years prior. These are transitional houses by nature. And this is the part of my story that I consider to be divine intervention. So the next morning, the train started running at Suburban Station, and I could remember walking down into the train station, going up to the ticket counter and asking for a ticket to Levittown. And I can remember the person saying, do you want round trip? It's cheaper if you buy it all at once. And I was like, no, just one way. As if I were committing to something without recognizing what I was committing to. So I take the train, I get off. Now it's a 6-mile walk from the train station to this house. Now let me just set the scene correctly. So this is August in Philadelphia. 95 degrees, 80% humidity. Hot, humid day. And I'm walking, and all that I had to my name was a pair of winter clothes because I had gone to jail in the wintertime. So I'm walking down the street in a pair of jeans, Timberland boots, which were very stylish in 2010. I'm wearing an undershirt, and I'm carrying in a plastic Foot Locker bag this big hooded sweatshirt. Now logically, it made no sense to be carrying around a sweatshirt. But I can remember my ego couldn't take the fact that I had lost everything, that I had nothing to my name. In my mind, nobody knew what was in this bag. I have stuff, right? I have stuff. And so I'm walking, sun beating on me, sweat dripping down my face, and I get to the recovery house. I take 2 steps up and knock on the door. Now there are 21 people who live in this house. It's 4-to-a-room, really big house. And who answers the door but Harold? And he goes, hey man, good to see you. I'm like, good to see you too. How you been? Like, well, I'm actually in a pretty bad way, I need a place to stay. We got a place, grab your stuff. I'm like, I got it, right here. Now looking back, that's really when I started to understand the power of surrender and to develop a deep belief that the universe, God, higher power, had my back. And while AI is all the rage right now, and I think artificial intelligence is really cool, AI has nothing on our intuitive intelligence, right? Our universal intelligence, that life force that connects us all. And ever since then, I try to spend time daily connecting with that source, whether that's through prayer, or meditation. And on the days that I'm able to, I notice I'm in a more peaceful and powerful state. Now, I learned another very important lesson early on while living at that recovery house. So back then in the area, it was well known by employers that these recovery houses are a good place to find cheap labor, more or less, right? You could go there, people are down on their luck, and an employer could get somebody at a fraction of the cost they might pay other employees. And we had one of these guys stop by the house. His name was Bruce Jobs, and he was looking for 3 people. So he interviewed 3 of us. We got the job, and the job was you would go from Home Depot to Home Depot and put away lumber for 10 hours a day. And he'd show up at 5 in the morning, and we would jump in the car, and off we'd go. Now the other 2 guys, they complained the whole time. Too much work, not enough money, yada yada. Meaning I was grateful. I focused on all the things I appreciated about the job. I got to make a little bit of money, I got a good workout in, I got to meet some really nice Home Depot associates, and that attitude of gratitude ultimately led to me working my way up to a top position at this company where I was managing a territory from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh, which is 5 hours west, up through the Hudson Valley to Albany, New York, and back down. So it was this massive surface area. And I did a lot of driving. And when I would drive, I would buy these books on CD. So this is before YouTube and Audible. And I would listen to these books, and I would just immerse myself in positive psychology, personal development, neuroscience. And then I would get to the city, I would do the job, and then from 5 to 9 in the hotel room, I was taking online courses at Drexel University studying behavioral psychology. Now, after a couple of years of doing this, I started to feel a fire in my belly. And if I have any entrepreneurs in the room, I know I have a few, or anybody that's created anything, you know that feeling when your purpose just starts to emerge, it starts to come through you. And that was happening to me. Now, looking back, that's when I started to realize that there's no objective reality. We don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. Our perception creates our reality, and our focus controls our perception. At any given moment, we can choose to focus on positivity. We can choose to focus on optimism. We can choose to focus on gratitude like I did that day that Bruce Joss picked me up to put away wood at Home Depot. And I could directly correlate me finding my purpose to making that choice that day. Now let me talk about my purpose a little bit. So, they said the 2 most important days in a person's life are the day that they're born and the day that they find out why. The year was 2014, and I had spent the previous 2 years working night and day to build a behavior modification program. And the program had 3 primary components. So there was a measurement component, there was a clinical curriculum component, and there was an energy component. I'll just give you guys a brief overview. So the measurement component, I created this assessment called the holistic hexagon. And it would measure 6 key areas of a person's life. And we would, on a weekly basis, give it to these people who are at these treatment centers seeking care, and they would fill them out. So that was the measurement component. There was a clinical curriculum component where I created a workbook, and however they scored on the holistic hexagon, if they scored low in family, it would make a recommendation to the workbook. So it was called a feedback system. And then there was an energy component. Now what this was, I believe, and I still believe, that it's very difficult to introduce a new psychological construct to somebody if they're physiologically disengaged. Shoulders drooped, slouching in their chairs. So I created a script that was to be read at the beginning of each group day. And actually, I have the script with me, and I'm hoping we could just play along together where we're one big treatment group right now, and I'm the person who was selected to read the script, and you all can just follow along. Is that okay? Good afternoon, everyone. Today is October 12th, 2024. It will never be this very day again. Today is an opportunity not to be as good as we once were, but better. Good memory. And then I would have everybody stand up, so if everybody could just stand up, please. figure recovery out by myself, it sounds like this. But when I ask for help, it's more impactful. So on the count of 3, I want us all to clap at the same exact time. Ready? 1, 2, and keep it going. 3. We work together. We're stronger. We work together. All right, great. Have a seat. Thank you so much. I couldn't wait to bring this program to the world. I was going to quit my job. I was going to get in treatment centers all around the country. But before I did, I wanted to talk to a few people I trusted and get their feedback. So I went to this mentor of mine. I was part of this mentorship program called SCORE, where I was retired CEOs who would mentor young guys. And I can remember, I explained it all, just like I explained it to you all to him. And he's looking at me, and he's going, maybe don't quit your job. And then I talked to a clinician friend of mine, and he's like, dude, Eric, nobody's going to do that holistic hexagon thing, and definitely no clinician's going to do that clapping exercise that you just did. Long story short, everybody told me that it was a horrible idea. Everybody except one person, my wife. So let me just take a step back and talk about her real quick. So we met in 2011. I was a year into my recovery, and I was on a sober beach trip at the Jersey Shore. And I was in the ocean, and I was about up to my waist in the ocean. And I see this beautiful woman wading into the ocean. And I'm like, oh man, I gotta find a reason to talk to her. So the waves were pretty rough that day, and she was wearing a pair of sunglasses. And I was like, God. So I go swimming over to her, and I'm like, you might not want to be wearing those sunglasses, you know, the waves are pretty rough, you might lose them. And she's like, all right, guys, thanks. Worry about yourself. I kid you not, 2 seconds later, this big wave comes and just wipes us both out. We go tumbling through the surf, we get up, start talking, and we've been together ever since. Now, while I was still getting my life together, she was sharp. She was working towards a master's degree. And I can remember asking her out on our first date, this is us right here. I got that 4X shirt on, it's the only college shirt I had. So I can remember asking her on a date, and then having to say, by the way, would you pick me up because my license is suspended? She never judged me. And in a lot of ways, she believed in me before I could believe in myself. And we've been together for about 3 years when I decided to pop the question. And we were actually on vacation in Paris, France. And I can remember being so nervous. And we were at a place called Les Invalides. It's a military museum, actually where Napoleon's tomb is. Apparently not the most romantic spot. But I can remember getting down on one knee and asking her to be my wife. It was the best decision I've ever made. And she was excited. In her opinion, it was long overdue. And I can remember on the flight home, she was looking at the ring, snapping a picture for Instagram. Life was good. And we've gotten home, and I was actively working towards saving money because I wanted to start this business. And I was set to quit my job the next month to get it started. And I came out to work one day, and I go to where my car was. And my car's not there. I'm like, maybe I'll park the block down. So I walk a block down. Car's not there. Car was stolen. Now this was a 96 Honda Accord. I did not have full coverage. This was a problem for me. I was going to have to use the money that I had saved to get a new car, and this was going to delay my dreams. And I remember being upset, waking her up to let her know. And then I go down to the front door, and I waited for the police to get there so I could file a report. And she came down, I remember this vividly, and she put her arm on my shoulder, and she said, Eric, it'll be okay. We could sell my ring. I was like, that was a special moment for me. I knew I was with somebody who really was going to support me no matter what. Now, luckily, it didn't come to that. We didn't have to do that. But looking back, that's when I really started to recognize that you don't need everybody to believe in your dreams. You just need that one person. And if you have that one person, cherish them. But the more important lesson that I learned that day is that I want to be that person for people. I want to be that person who lifts people up. I want to be that person who supports people's dreams. I want to be that person who helps people get to the next level. So that's what recovery is about. So that was an important lesson on my journey. Now, I officially took the leap later that year and did start my own business. And it started off like this. I go around the treatment centers in Philadelphia, literally go to the treatment center. I would knock on the door, and if they would let me in, I'd set up an easel and a poster board, and I would passionately explain to them why I believe that feedback-informed treatment, which is what we were calling this back then, in my program, could help to personalize care and save lives. Ultimately, that earned me the nickname Easel Eric in Philadelphia. A few people call me Easel E for short. Eventually, I got my first shot of a halfway house that I'd gone through called Good Friends. And I can remember finishing my first group there, and the executive director, Teresa, coming up to me and handing me a check for $100. And I thought, holy shit, I made it. There's nothing better as an entrepreneur than getting that first money. And then not too long after that, I was on LinkedIn, and I remember I was scrolling on LinkedIn, and I saw this ad for a new treatment center in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, which is right next to Philadelphia. They had just opened, and they were looking to hire primary therapists. And there was just an energy about this ad. So I applied for the job. Now, the fact that I wasn't a primary therapist, or even looking for a job, didn't even cross my mind, to be honest with you. So I show up to the interview, shake the guy's hand, I say, I'm not here for the job, but let me show you my program. And I set up my easel and my poster board, and I let him rip. Now, luckily, he was a very forward-thinking guy, and he wanted to do something innovative in the space. And he's like, love everything you just said, let's get started. And things really just took off from there. We hired an amazing team of clinicians who loved the program and really made it their own. I was featured on the front page of the Burlington County Times, one man's journey to create a new paradigm in addiction treatment. All sorts of great things going on. About a year and a half into it, I come in one day, and I remember it was a Monday the week of Thanksgiving. I come in, and I'm in my office, and I can hear a therapist crying in the next office. So I go over, and I'm like, what's going on? It turns out that she hadn't gotten paid. Nobody had gotten paid. And the owner was on Facebook posting pictures of him and his family in Lake Placid, New York at some 5-star resort. He was stealing all of the money from the company and using it to fund his luxurious lifestyle. And this had been his plan all along. I was devastated. All of the fears, all of the doubts, all of the memories of the people telling me it was a horrible idea came rushing back into my mind. And I had a pity party for a couple of days, but then I remember those lessons that I learned early on. That the universe had my back. That I needed to choose an attitude of gratitude. There was a lot to be grateful for about the situation. I did those things, and I think within a week and a half, another treatment center reached out, heard great things, wanted me to do the program. So we're back on track, was doing it there for about a year, and then out of the blue, I get a call from a guy named Nick. Now, Nick was an investor in the previous company, and he had spent his career owning and operating treatment centers around the country, but he's also a programmer by training, so he's a technology guy. And he reaches out, he was managing a center in Texas, and he's like, hey, could you do your program out here? I really loved it when I was working with him. I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. So I fly out there, and that's when I had a conversation that changed my life. And I'll never forget it. We were in the lobby of a Marriott in Austin, Texas. And he says to me, look, man, I see your passion for helping people, but let's be honest. If you're doing this by hand, maybe you could help hundreds of people. But if we turn this into a technology, we could help millions of people. And I was just mind blown. I had never even considered this as an option. And him and I went on to found ERP Health. So it's a company that Gerald was referring to. It's being used by Silicon Valley. And we're able to take that mindset that I had when I was creating the program in pen and paper and really scale it. And looking back, that's when I learned and really started to understand that failure is never final. In fact, if we could just persevere, oftentimes things work out even better than we could have expected. As of now, we're working in over 200 treatment centers in 27 states, measuring the outcomes of the treatment. So are you offering good or bad treatment? And if you're offering bad treatment, how can we make it better? So we work with these organizations to ensure that people who are struggling with substance use disorders are getting the best care, and then going to insurance companies, negotiating better rates, a lot of really great benefits. And that holistic hexagon that my clinician friend told me nobody would use has been completed over 75,000 times around the country, and we're about to publish a study that shows an inverse correlation between improvements in holistic hexagon scores, that's this blue line, and decreases in stress, anxiety, depression, and primary drug of choice craving. Best of all though, and I'll finish with this, just last week, I met with members of City Council in Philadelphia to talk about how our technology can be used to connect people who are struggling with addiction on the streets of Philadelphia to treatment centers right through the platform. I had that meeting at City Hall, that same building that I slept outside of on August 4th, 2010. So a true full circle moment. And my message today is, if you have an idea, if you have a dream, go for it. And I would just have to give a shout out to Gerald, because the reason I love coming to this is because I get to see somebody who had just an idea, because he wanted to help people, bring something as beautiful as this into fruition. So let's just give him a hand.
Testing. Do we have any questions for her?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say that the hand clamp exercise, absolutely, I could feel the vibrational energy completely raise as we were doing that. And I totally believe in that stuff, so that was super cool. And amazing story, thank you.
Thank you for noticing that. Yeah, I mean, the intention of that when I initially created it was, like I said, you often see this in groups where there's a lethargic nature to it, but if you're talking about psychology, physiology and psychology go hand in hand. So if you're really not in a good state physically, it can be very tricky to actually become some of these quote evidence-based practices, CBT, DBT. So I've always thought it was very important clinically as well.
Yeah, so we have sponsorship in recovery, but I feel like it's not the same. It's not the same as mentorship, right? So I'm curious, if you said you were mentored, are you involved currently in an organization that you're also mentoring people, and can you speak a little bit about mentorship and your whole journey and all that?
So what I do as a form of service now is I teach entrepreneurship to individuals in recovery, because I really believe if we could cultivate that sense of purpose and drive, and we have such an amazing creative community, don't we? There's so many great ideas that come from these workshops that I do, so that's like a passion of mine. You can call it mentorship. I'll do whatever I can to kind of help people, because I've had a lot of help along the way. And it was not an overnight success story at all. So, yeah, that's what I do. Is that what you're asking? What do I do personally?
All right, I think that's it. Thank you, Eric.